Hello and welcome. I am Exit Light and this is my channel. Today we're going to have a conversation. We're going to have a conversation about a mark between some people's eyes. Now, while we talk about this, you may not have noticed them before, but I guarantee that from now on, you will be at a movie theater or watching TV or standing in a grocery store or speaking to a teller at a bank or looking in the mirror and noticing a scar between people's eyes. And once you start noticing them, one begins to wonder, why are there so many people with scars between their eyes? Now, I did a video 2-3 years ago, and it was a fictional story. I wrote a story about that mark and, what it meant. And I got so many comments on that video, people saying that they had Googled chickenpox scar between my eyes. Why do so many people have chickenpox scars between our eyes? That I did a follow-up video. It wasn't a story, it was just a conversation like this. And I talked about chickenpox scars. And during that video, I posted it, and then I started getting a lot more comments. Again, people saying, I have been Googling and Googling and Googling. Why do so many people have a chickenpox scar between their eyes? Just above their nose, in between their eyebrows. Sometimes it's a little off center. Sometimes it's not directly between your eyebrows, above the bridge of your nose. Mine is, and so is my daughter's, which is what prompted me to write the story in the first place, because I noticed them. But there was a couple things that came up. Not everybody's had the chickenpox, yet they still have that scar. Another thing, they didn't have acne. I didn't have acne, neither has my daughter. I did have chickenpox, which is why I assumed it was chickenpox, but then I got to wondering, why do so many people have the exact same chickenpox scar between their eyebrows and nowhere else? It just didn't make sense. It was a weird coincidence. Then people started commenting and saying that they didn't get their scar until they were between 9 and 12 years old. Before that, they didn't have one. And I thought, well, my whole life I've thought, as I looked in the mirror, that it was a chickenpox scar. I got chickenpox twice. I was one of those lucky few. I didn't get it bad enough the first time, didn't build up an immunity. So the second time, boy, I was covered head to toe. There wasn't a blank spot in my eyes, my mouth, my nose, my hair, my head, I should say. And so I just assumed chickenpox scar. But I started looking through pictures of me as a child after the time I had chickenpox, and there was no scar. I didn't have a scar between my eyes. And I thought, how is this possible? How did I suddenly, one day or over the course of time, look into the mirror, see that I had a scar between my eyes, and all of a sudden just think, oh, it's a chickenpox scar that hadn't been there yesterday or the day before? It reminds me of that scene in Star Wars when Obi-Wan says something similar to, these are not the droids you've been looking for. That I looked in the mirror and there was this is a chickenpox scar. And then you say, oh, okay, and move along. I've been getting so many comments about that follow-up video that I wanted to address it again. So many people are looking for answers about a chickenpox scar. But when I started looking, I figured out that we were searching for the wrong thing. The wrong words. And when I changed the wording, I came up with quite a bit. So I'm going to talk about it today. I've had a lot of theories left on my videos about this mark. Everything from, we are the chosen people who will survive a disaster on the planet. I've been told that we're special. God has marked us. I've been told that we've been abducted by aliens, and they stuck a probe into our pineal gland, and that is why we have the scar there. There are a lot of theories. We're going to talk about a couple of them and see what you think. And if you would like to leave a message below, start a conversation. If you have a scar, or someone you know has a scar, let's talk about it. When did it show up? What do you think it is? And if you are not subscribed and you would like to be, please do that. And please like this video. You can do it at any point. And if you'd like to be notified when my content goes live, please click that bell. I would greatly appreciate it. Well, let's start talking about this odd coincidence. Let's start by talking about what is behind the scar, the area of your brain behind the scar between your eyes. Well, that's the pineal gland. It's a pea-sized gland that's shaped like a pine cone. It's located in the middle of the brain. Once a revered tool of seers and mystics, it's now largely dormant, they say. Its divine purpose partly lost over the ages. Has it been? It's the organ of supreme universal connection, and its significance appears in every culture throughout the world. Some say the pineal gland's significance has long been suppressed over the ages, like your wisdom teeth, and was long ago discarded as just a vestigial organ. The Greeks maintained that it ruled thought, while René Descartes held it as the seat of the soul. The pineal was and is something of an enigma. Such controversy over something so small does hint at its extraordinary legacy. While the physical eyes perceive the physical world, the third eye sees the true world, a unified whole with an unyielding connection to God. This is the way the third eye acts as a captain seat of your soul. Well, biologically speaking, we can see how the function of the pineal gland contributes to a metaphysical universe. Glands are designed to secrete important hormones. Melatonin is produced by the pineal gland, controlling our circadian rhythms and reproductive hormones. This makes your pineal gland the master of regulating your time, affecting not only our sleep patterns but also our sexual maturation. More than just sleep regulating, the melatonin releases have an effect on our stress and an ability to adapt to a changing world. Quite simply put, our happiness and well-being is directly affected by the harmony of the pineal gland. I read an article about a woman who had a mole grow in between her eyes. It wasn't a scar. It didn't look like a chicken pox. It was a mole. And she said that Indians would sometimes look at her strangely, thinking, that it was placed on her forehead and she was clearly not Indian, and she thought that they were thinking that she was trying to steal a part of their culture. Well, she was at MIT during a campus preview weekend when a pair of Indian parents standing next to her tapped her on the shoulder and said, "Oh, so it's a mole. We saw you a few times yesterday and we were wondering what it was." She wasn't surprised by the remark, but it was the first time Indian adults had come up to her to directly inquire about it. Now she felt like this was the time that she could be curious. So she said, "What does that dot mean to you?" And the parents exchanged glances with each other. And the father said, "Well, it means that a woman is married." But the mother said, No. as if that the woman would be afraid to be offended by that thought. She said, "It's like your third eye. There was once an Indian prince who wanted to take women from his village, and the mark began as a way for women to tell him that they were married and off limits." The father explained, "But really, spiritually, it's your third eye," as the mother nodded. In that same article, the woman noted that the Taiwanese do something called face reading, which is like a palm reading for the face. According to this practice, the shape of your forehead, your nose, and other facial features, including moles and freckles and scars, say something about you. It's a traditional superstition, and one can be convinced that the conclusions are complete fiction, but it still holds power over some people, particularly the older generation. Apparently, Buddha had a mark in the center of his forehead, which symbolized his wisdom. So, in a face reading, a mark there is very special. There's a Chinese goddess of some sort with a mark on her forehead, too. Now, the woman who was writing the article says, "I don't know what purpose that she serves. I've only seen the drawing of her in my grandparents' home, but it was put on an altar. Her mother wanted her to get this mole removed, and she told this woman's sister, who apparently told this woman's grandmother. The grandmother called, and she said in Chinese to her mother, 'What? You are removing the mole? How dare you?' The mother suggests we decided it, and the grandmother replied, 'If you do that, I'll never talk or see the two of you again.' And she hung up the phone. When someone is curious about the meaning of a scar on their face, it is helpful to know what age area it shows up on the face. I'm going to show you this map, a map of faces, a map that shows you that there's numbers, and those are what is read in a face reading. According to the face readers, this reveals the age when an opportunity might present itself later in life, resurfacing those emotions to process and heal from the emotion that happened at the time when the scar first appeared. It can also reveal a health issue to be addressed. And going back to the emotions being healed at the time that it appeared, one thing that nearly everybody who contacts me says is that their scar appeared between the ages of 9, 12, and 13. And it never occurred to me to ask, was there something that traumatic that could have caused that? Was there something that happened in your life? Was there a loss? Was there abuse? Something. And it's interesting to me to read this particular part of the face reading, because not only did I have something happen to me around that age, but the number given where my scar is, something did drastically change in my life. I got married. Anyway, let's continue on. The last option of the number is that the possibility exists that it can represent an element, an archetype, or a decade. The element in the eyebrow area represents the liver, which talks about anger, meaning there may be an issue with the liver or unresolved anger. There are many possibilities, but it's simply a clue of something to be addressed that has not been resolved. We all have clues on our faces of things to work on, and face reading is a great tool to help figure out what that might be. This is another thing that really strikes me, that talks about anger being withheld. And I can see in my own life how that could be what that meaning is. If I was someone who believed in face readings, and I really don't have a reason to not believe in them. They are ancient, but it's interesting when you hear something and you can make a connection in your own life. Moving on. The eyebrow area addresses anger. It's also an area that talks about the father and possibly anger towards your dad about something that happened. As previously mentioned, it could reveal emotions that were present at the time of the scar. That also is something that really resonates with me. As many of you know, my father recently passed away due to COVID. He wasn't my biological father. He was my adopted father. My mother, my biological mother, had married him, and he chose to adopt us. My biological father chose to not have a relationship with us. It's a long, drawn-out story, and everybody's got one, so we don't need to cover it here. It's just interesting to me that it specifically brings up fathers. There might be opportunities that arise when a person reaches the ages of the numbers to address and process those emotional issues that were present when he got the scar. If he recognizes this and works to process and heal those issues, chances are the scar could be less visible or disappear altogether. If the emotions don't get resolved, scars may tend to remain as a reminder of sorts. So I found this page, and as I said earlier, I think that those of us who were Googling chickenpox scar between our eyes, and the reason why we couldn't find hardly any information at all, was that we weren't Googling mark over third eye. It seems to be, in nearly every culture, a spiritual subject. It seems to be an opening of the third eye. It seems to be a gift of some sort in most religions. So I found this webpage that said that the question they got more than any other question is, what does the Bible say about the opening of the third eye? Is it dangerous? Could it be demonic? Will the person become possessed? It says that they noticed that there are differing opinions all throughout Christendom, as there are many different types of Christianity. And in that article, they addressed what the third eye is and what it is not, biblically speaking. The Bible does not mention the third eye by name, but it does make mention of it, referring to the mind's eye and a few other references as well. Now, as I spoke about earlier, the shape of the pineal gland is like a tiny little pine cone. Its function is, as I said, to produce melatonin, which allows the body to relax before sleep. But also there's something else. The third eye is said to produce natural DMT, dimethyltryptamine, which I hope I pronounced correctly, which allows the mind to enter into a dream state. This DMT allows individuals to see images through their rapid eye movement, which is how we dream at night. In Eastern religious thoughts, such as the Indian traditions, the third eye is labeled as the sixth chakra, Anja, and by opening it, one can achieve enlightenment. From a biblical standpoint, we are enlightened after receiving the baptism of the Holy Spirit and become illuminated with the light of Christ. And if you've ever noticed, for a baptism, let's say for a Catholic, the water is dripped on their forehead. Ash Wednesday, the cross put on your forehead in front of your third eye. This illumination or awakening from slumber is not the end of spiritual enlightenment, but the beginning. But the natural man receiveth not the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness unto him, neither can he know them, because they are spiritually discerned. Discerned means that one can have a feeling, that gut feeling, that voice in the back of your head tells you something's wrong. Well, this is talking about spiritual discernment. So what does the Bible say about opening the third eye? Well, Jesus says the light of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. But if thine eye be evil, thy whole body shall be full of darkness. If therefore the light that is thee be darkness, how great is that darkness? And that's Matthew 6:22 through 23. This is saying, in direct correlation with being double-minded versus allowing the mind's eye, to be single and focused on God, which is peace, harmony, and light. The third eye is a place where God meets with us. It is also the door by which an individual is able to, quote-unquote, see into the spirit realm by way of spiritual gifts, such as the discernment of spirits, quickenings, words of knowledge, words of wisdoms, dreams, and so on. One key scripture to look at concerning the third eye, the pineal gland, is in Genesis 32:22 through 32, where Jacob wrestled with God. While Jacob was at the river Jabbok alone, he wrestles with God and is left with a bruised hip and a blessing. During his struggle back and forth with God, Jacob grabs hold of God and says that he will not release him until he blesses him. And that's exactly what Jacob received. After this encounter, Jacob called the place Peniel, saying, "It is because I saw God face to face, and yet my life was spared." The pineal, or pineal gland, is where each and every individual wrestles with God. It is where the battle between good and evil are fought within the mind of each and every person. Through opening the third eye, many people believe that it causes you to be able to see things in or around individuals. This could be demonic, it could be angels, it could be a sign or a symbol in the spirit, which is the way God speaks. The prophets in the Bible were known as seers, and a seer's job is to see. Seers are able to look ahead and see what God is doing. They are also very empathic, being able to feel what God is doing as well. And something that connected with me greatly in that is that if you've been around here for a long time, or not even that long probably, I always talk about the fact that I have some type of ability. I don't call it being a psychic. I don't know what it is, but I do have this feeling of knowing when something bad, so to speak, is going to happen. The stronger my reaction, the worse whatever's happening is going to be. I have had reactions so strong that I had to drive across the state to be with my husband, and my grandmother died that night. I've had reactions so strong that my body was literally jerking. The muscles in my arms and my legs and my head jerking, spasming, I called my husband and told him something's wrong. My father passed away. I would very much say that I am empathic. As you guys are probably tired of hearing about, I love history. I don't want to walk into a museum and see things. I want to feel them. I walked into the Alamo, and I didn't care that there were uniforms on display. They weren't even the uniforms that had been worn during the Alamo. I didn't care about the weapons. They weren't the weapons that had been used during the Alamo. They were weapons similar. I wanted to put my hand on the walls. I wanted to put my fingers in the holes, the musket holes. That hole in that musket its intention had been to kill somebody. Whether it did or not, we'll never know. But that's what its intention was. And to me, to put my hand on something like that and feel that is very powerful. All of these spiritual giftings and abilities are filtered through the third eye. It is simply the way in which we see the spirit. Is the third eye the mark of the beast? I've been told that as well. It is believed by some that opening of the third eye is the forbidden fruit mentioned in the Bible, in the book of Genesis. They think this because when Adam and Eve ate of the tree of knowledge, they became, quote unquote, like God. The thing is that they believed the lie of the serpent who told them that they would become like God, in whose image they were already created. Some Christians who believe this are slow to change, to come to another conclusion, and they can be quick to condemn any knowledge or belief outside of their current realm of understanding, which, by the way, can be said for many, many people, whether they're religious or not. The third eye has, in some forms, been demonized by Christianity. As a story, when I was a child, I was taught that yoga was a sin because they are trying to get you to open your third eye to see God. Therefore, it must be a sin. But the Bible compels people to seek and search after the truth, to obtain knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. It is what we do with that knowledge that makes a person corrupt or not. Opening the third eye is not the mark of the beast spoken about in the book of Revelation. Those who have their third eye open are able to see in the spirit and judge spiritual matters, according to this particular Christian website. So, does the opening of the third eye open me up to being demon possessed? Well, no. Sins open up a person to be demonically possessed, according to Christianity. Many people who engage in spiritual practices that seem to be Eastern in origin are afraid that if they meditate, stretch the wrong way, and accidentally do yoga, they will become demon possessed. And like I said, I can tell you that's exactly the way I was raised. The truth is that Christianity in its concept was a spiritual practice from the East before it became a religion in the West. So that is what I found as far as religiously speaking. I'll show you some statues, some paintings that have people with marks between their eyes. Ancient statues. Is it possible, as some have asked me, that those of us with this mark were abducted by UFOs? Well, I can tell you I don't remember that. But on the other hand, like I said earlier, I looked into the mirror, saw a scar I'd never had before, and concluded that it must have been there all along, and just accepted that. My daughter also has one. I can't explain it. I don't know what it is, but if it is a mark of your third eye, then what? Then are we special? Can we see things? And if we are silent and listen and be inside of ourselves, are we blessed? Are we seers? If you have this mark between your eye, what do you feel? Do you feel that you are somehow different from other people? Do you feel that you possibly have some ability that other people may not have? Do you feel that it has anything to do with demons or demon possession? Do you think it has anything to do with being abducted by a UFO? The thing about that is, people might laugh about that idea. But it seems to me that if an alien life form were to want to see into a human's brain, the pineal gland, the place where we meet God, the place that releases the chemicals so that when we fall asleep at night, we can work through what happened during the day. See, we have two states of being, wide awake and asleep. While we're wide awake, that brain is processing, it's taking in information, it's connecting the dots, it's learning, especially in children. If you're putting a puzzle together, that brain is using its senses, its common senses, it's seeing how things can be done. And it's exhausting because what you see during the day, you don't even know a small amount. Your vision catches out of the corner of your eye the color of a car that's parked next to the sidewalk you're walking on. It catches if there's two people in the car, what the driver looks like, if there's a car seat in the back. It recognizes bumper stickers. When you're walking into a restaurant, you can see how full it is, what the person on your right has in her hair. Is it a barrette? Is she wearing something on her dress? We don't stop and think about these things, but we are noticing them. They say that we've never seen a face in our dreams that we haven't actually seen in real life, which is interesting because we take in a lot of faces. It doesn't mean that we have to know we've seen that face before. It just means that our brain processed it. So while you're asleep and your DMT is released, and it opens you up to processing, to healing. We heal when we're asleep. I tease that there are nights where I wake up in the morning feeling exhausted because I've had what I call therapy dreams, where I have worked on issues that I carry with me. I'm one of those people who likes to have an ending, who likes to say, this hurt me, you need to know that, you can apologize now. You know what I mean? I can't always have that. No one can. But when I'm dreaming, I work through those and say to the people, this is how you treated me, this isn't fair, and I will rage and become exhausted. Also, sometimes when I'm dreaming, I'll go to a place and I can feel pure joy. That's sometimes hard to do in life these days. Pure joy. So I'm also able to control my dreams, have lucid dreaming, to be able to say, hey, this is my dream, and it's going to go my way. That happens in my pineal gland. Some people try for years meditating and learning how to do that, how to control a dream. I've never learned or studied. It just comes to me. Is that because of the mark between my eyes? All right. Thank you for coming to my channel. I hope that you have found this interesting. I know that it's hard that there are no solid answers, but I hope that I've given you things to consider, to ponder about, and please leave comments below. I am open to having a conversation with your different ideas and your experiences. Good night.